Good afternoon. This is Gary Jones. You're listening to the UK Genesis podcast, the show that highlights UK web professionals who are using the Genesis framework for WordPress. This is episode number 20. Today, I have no co-host. Unfortunately, Jo is ill, but we hope she's listening and getting well soon. But we have got an amazing guest. We've got Dan Maby. How are you doing today, Dan?
Hi, Gary. Hi. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. So thanks for taking the time to join us today. And also thank you for our listeners, whether you're listening live or listening later on. If you are listening live, if you've got any questions for Dan, then please ask them on Twitter. If you tag it either to UK Genesis or with the hashtag UK Genesis, we will see that and we'll get those questions asked. For those of you who don't know Dan, Dan now is hopefully going to give us a lovely introduction about himself and tell us what he does, who he is, and everything like that. Dan.
Hello, hi. I'm Dan Maby. I'm the MD and co-founder of Assisted.by. We provide virtual assistance services for busy entrepreneurs, growing teams, and startups. I also offer freelance WordPress development and run the WPLDN Meetup group. I've been in web since about 2009. Around that sort of time, maybe back in, early part of 2010, came across WordPress, having tried various other CMSs, the Umbraco, Joomla, Drupal, but really just found that WordPress fitted my needs and have been developing with it ever since.
In what way did WordPress kind of fit your needs?
I just found out of the box it was just a better fit for me. As I said, I tried a couple of the others, and I just found from a user experience they weren't on par with what was available through WordPress.
Cool. Okay, so obviously the reason we invited you for the podcast is because I know you use Genesis. So let's just have a quick cover of that. How did you discover Genesis? What do you find useful about it?
Genesis I discovered fairly early on. It was that kind of shopping around looking for themes. I certainly wouldn't call myself a developer, and it's only really recently that I've called myself a developer. I was more of what's now referred to as an implementer, and I was looking at various themes and finding various stuffed full of settings, stuffed full of things that I just didn't need, and then so came across StudioPress and their products, and was just very happy with what I was getting from them out of the box. I found from a development perspective, it was reducing my time because I wasn't having to mess around with 1,001 other settings within themes that just weren't applicable to what I was doing. It was a very early on find for me, and I'm very grateful that I found them that early on, and I've been using them ever since. Yep. It's my go-to theme. Generally for projects. I have done a few projects that are off the Genesis framework, and often I found that I've had some challenges when I've come away from using Genesis framework. That may be because I've gotten myself so used to the way Genesis is developed and how to manipulate it. But that's generally been my experience of it so far.
And the use of Genesis, is this for your own websites or is this client work? What kind of was your role in the use of Genesis, or just general your background work as well?
Sure. It's a combination of both personal projects and client work. I tend to find that the client work, I will start off with the sample theme and just start building off from that. I use a number of the child themes, off the off-the-shelf child themes for personal projects.
Any particular favourites?
Oh, I think I do quite like Parallax Pro. There are a couple of them there that I really do like. I think I'm using the agency theme, I think it is, for my personal site. But yeah, I think they're just out of the box. They're very nice, clean sites. But actually very easy to then manipulate and take beyond what they are out of the box as well. I do particularly like the say the Parallax Pro theme. I found that could be manipulated to create some very different appearances. I created assisted by actually built on top of Parallax Pro. I say for a number of client sites, it tends to be the sample theme that I'll use. I just find it's a really good base just to get started. It just cuts out a lot of the kind of initial work that I would do with a starter theme. I did try, and I have built some of my own starter themes previously. And I just find that actually I end up going back and tweaking those starter themes and making changes that really stop them from being a starter theme.
So when you're doing your client work, or even I guess your own sites, do you do the design as well as the development, or do you bring somebody into the design and you just implement it? Do you bring in somebody else to do any kind of custom work? What's your kind of workflow in terms of taking a lead that's a client that's come to you, or you know you need your own website for assisted by or something else? How do you move that forward? So what's your process for that?
Sure. It really depends on how the client has come to me. If they're coming through my personal site, generally they're looking for a full development. They want that kind of end-to-end service. Now, I can provide it. I'm not a designer. I do offer design work. I do explain to people that this isn't my my main focus, although I then show people sites that I have designed myself and say, look, if you're happy with what you're seeing, then I'd be happy to provide that service for you. But my personal preference is more back-end development. So if people coming through from my personal site, I say it's really finding out what they're looking for, whether they're coming with a design or whether they're requiring a design. And then taking it from there. If they're coming through assisted by, it's slightly different because we've got a lot of kind of automated processes there that are really kind of filtering down what is required by the client. So they may come through, fill in the initial application or the initial email saying, I've got this theme off the shelf, would you manipulate it for me? And then that's a very different conversation from the application where it states, we have this concept for a website, can we discuss and take it further forward? So it's quite a varying workflow depending on the inquiries that are coming in.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned assisted by, assisted.by for those who look it up. You said you're the managing director, can you outline what that is, what services that provides?
Yeah, sure. Assisted by, it was born out of a conversation between my wife and I. She has been providing virtual assistant services on a kind of part-time basis outside of her normal day job for about 7 or 8 years now. And about a year ago, the two of us had a conversation that what are our combined skill sets? What can we come up with? And really decided, you know, we can take her virtual assistant services that she was offering, and at that time it was more focused on administrative assistance, diary management, email management, that type of thing. And so can we take that into something else and then scale it up into something bigger? Which is what really has been the focus of us for the last 12 months or so. And now it's providing the term virtual assistant is so broad, it can cover such a wide variety of services. We are at the moment focusing on administrative skills as well as WordPress solutions. Now we're not actually advertising our web development or WordPress solutions on the site currently, because personally I've been trying to wrap up some of the client services that I've been providing with more of a focus on a SaaS solution. We've got a number of products in the pipeline at the moment that we're really spending a lot of time and effort trying to polish off before we start promoting those. We've got quite a number of changes coming for 2016 for us.
Can you give us any hints about those changes?
Yes, I mean, predominantly, as I say, we're now focusing on providing tools for individuals rather than building sites for them. That's really our focus. These tools, I unfortunately can't go into too much detail at the moment, but they are, as I said, more of a SaaS solution rather than client services.
That's fair enough. What is your preference then? Because obviously we had Dave Dean, who I think it was episode 18, and it might be 19. Anyway, some previous episode, and he said that when he does a bit of graphic design, he does a bit of kind of web design, he does some WordPress implementation and kind of theme development, and he did this because he liked not putting all his eggs in one basket. He liked to have that separation and that diversity. Is that something that you're focusing on with doing some work for assisted by, or managing kind of assisted by, and doing your own freelance work as well, and perhaps other stuff? We'll come to the community stuff as well. Is that what you're trying to do, or is it just you? I mean, how is that working for you?
Sure, absolutely, great question. I've got, I feel that with the community stuff that I'm doing around WordPress and the services that we are offering within Assisted By, I want and I enjoy keeping relevant within the WordPress sphere. And I want to be able to say to a customer, I can develop, I can design a site for you. Now, as I say, I wouldn't class myself as a designer. I will do work for people, and I do enjoy it. But I know there are people out there that are much, much, much better than me, both design and development. And I will happily outsource those to better people, because I feel it's doing justice to the end customer, end client. For me, WordPress development, it almost started as a bit of a hobby. It was a bit of an unintentional growth for me. I'd have family members and friends say, "Oh, Dan can build you a little site," or "Dan can do this for you," and I ended up building up this client base unintentionally whilst I was in full-time employment, and just continued from there. And it got to the point where I started providing retainer packages as well for these clients, and I realized, you know what, there's more to this than just a little hobby. It can actually be a wholesome income from it. So I always want to maintain that kind of the ability to develop within the WordPress. That's something I will continue to grow my skills at. But I also like to keep myself very busy. I like to keep myself challenged. So I'm continually trying to evolve and grow. I've got a number of projects that are going on at the moment that are both WordPress related and non-related, completely unrelated to WordPress. So it really is about just keeping myself challenged, really.
Yeah. Do you provide any training for your clients?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. I found that there's this misperception that WordPress is easy. I think I've often heard it related to sort of stepping into a cockpit of an airplane. You go into the back end of WordPress, and there are so many buttons and places you can go that actually not providing any training for a client can just cause so many additional headaches further on down the line. That time spent training them is time very well spent when it comes to the support and the continuing support for them.
And who is your target audience for either I guess everything, all of the services you provide?
Our target audience are really SMEs, small to medium business. I actually enjoy, my personal preference is actually working one-to-one with individuals, just because I get a lot of enjoyment out of assisting people and actually helping them grow. Although obviously the lights need to be kept on, the bills need to be paid, and I find that the SME tend to have a better understanding of the costs associated with taking on this kind of development work. I think we saw a going back a couple of years, or not even a couple of years, not that long ago, we had this kind of race to the bottom within WordPress. There was a lot of free this, free that, themes were being dished out, and prices obviously were affected by that, by the way we were racing to the bottom. And it's been, I think, a bit of a challenge to come up the other side now. It certainly is coming up. I'm definitely seeing prices increasing and people having a better understanding of what's being offered now.
Do you tend to price in kind of what would equivalently be hourly or fixed price or value-based pricing or some other method?
I really like the concept of value-based pricing. It's not something I'm doing enough of. I've actually I've gotten into several situations actually. Probably I think there's 5 sites now where I've actually developed the sites based on percentage of company, the percentage of the owner's company, and obviously that's much higher risk, but I felt it gives me some buy-in to what I'm developing, designing for the end client as well, and there's been a different incentive, and again just a slightly different way of looking at things. So I'm getting a bit of a small slice of the pie of their company for providing the site for them. But predominantly, it's we'll charge on a fixed rate price.
How do you see? I mean, because that's it's one of the rarer kind of payment methods, I guess, is as I'll give you 10% of the company if you do create a website for it, for instance. How does that mean you are kind of co-owner of, like, well, you said 5 sites, but how do you see that kind of moving forwards? Will you wait until they grow to a certain size and then sell off your portion of it, or you'll keep going with that and drop your freelance and just help run these 5 businesses? How's that? What's the long plan for that?
Sure. Two of them are very definitely, I see more as a mentorship type situation. I've invested in the company by developing the sites for them, and I will continue supporting and investing my time in the companies, as I said, more as a mentor type role. The other 3 are seen more as short to medium term investments. I see potential within the companies, and we've been very honest and open with each other about that, and that's been the key. It's been understanding what the relationship is here, what we are agreeing between us, because obviously taking a percentage of somebody's baby, almost. I mean, when you're setting up your own company, it becomes very personal, and obviously you want to ensure that it's a right fit for everybody involved.
Yeah. Dave Dean actually just tweeted us at UK Genesis. He just said, diversify your portfolio to protect your downside. The same is true of your income.
Yes, very true.
Okay, so what tools do you use then to manage projects, for invoicing, getting quotes to clients, time tracking?
A lot, actually. My go-to for project management is Asana. We have developed a number of tools in the back end of Assisted By that are feeding into Asana and some other tools. We found that we were getting a lot of requests coming in from various places, and we needed to be able to manage those requests. Part of the challenge that I have, and I've tried to ensure, is I don't like the idea of people having to log into lots of different places, or another app, another website, another place to manage something else. I've always tried to ensure that if we're providing support or asking people to contact us and get information to us, they're using tools that they're already using, such as email, SMS, or phone. Now, obviously, when you're receiving tasks and they're coming in via these various means, we need to be able to ensure that they are going to the correct person, and they're all managed in one place. It's all well and good setting myself up and sticking a number out on my website and then a text message coming into that phone, but of course one of the other guys or one of the other team members has no idea that text message has come in. So building the tools around our system, around our requirements has been really important to us, and Asana has played a big part of that for us. We also use Harvest as our time tracking, although I'm very bad at time tracking myself. But it just integrates nicely with Asana, so it's our kind of go-to for the time tracking. For some of our smaller projects, I'll tend to use Trello. Because I've just found it's got a lower barrier to entry. I like it. I've always liked the site and the way it works and the apps that go with it. We use Xero for accountancy. What do we use? WHMCS I use for all our hosting and billing. So we've got a site with that installed. Support, what are we using? I've got a list here actually. Help Scout for email support and Live Engage for live chats. I found the Live Engage has been fantastic. It was great because they had a free one-user account, which was great for us to test it out, make sure it was doing what we needed to do, and it is. I've been really, really impressed. The only thing on that is their app isn't working in the UK just yet, although I have been. They have told me it is coming in a couple of weeks. And then Evernote and Pocket really are my brain. Everything ends up in one of those two places. And then I tie it all together with Zapier. I use that for an awful lot of our automation. So that's the kind of most commonly used apps that I use to manage and maintain a business.
Do you work from home?
I do, yes. Yeah, work from home.
How do you avoid kind of distractions? How do you kind of keep focus with all these businesses and clients and everything?
That's keeping the focus. I've always been pretty good at. It's something I've always been very strict with myself when it comes to working. I come in, I sit in my office. That's me working. I think where my downfall is, it comes to finishing work. Sometimes I find myself sitting here at 1 o'clock in the morning still and thinking, you know what, this isn't how it should be. So sometimes I need to give myself a bit of a reality check and say, hang on, the job shouldn't be from 6 in the morning until 1 in the morning. So what I'll do then is I'll take myself out. I'll go and work elsewhere. I've got a number of other locations I can work from. And that for me just gives me that I'm going out to work mentality. Although, as I say, the majority of the time, when I'm actually in the office, I'm very focused. I understand that I'm here to work, and I try to split my days. I try not to focus on one thing for too long. I try to because I've got a number of projects going on. I may spend 2 hours in a 2-hour block on each project throughout the day, and I tend to chunk my day up into 2-hour blocks with breaks in between.
Okay. And where do you see, I guess, all of the businesses, the individual, the assisted by, and your freelance work? How do you see that, or where do you see that in kind of 12 months' time?
12 months. The freelance I'd like to continue as it is. I don't do a huge amount anymore, but as I say, I do some to keep myself relevant, and it's quite a nice position to be in because I get to discuss and really choose some very nice projects to work on. So I feel very fortunate to be in that position. The assisted by project, that is actually being pivoted into something a little bit different. That is, I'll be able to release more information in the coming months. It will continue to provide virtual assistant services, but actually we're changing what we're offering within that. We've got a number of tools that are being developed at the moment. As I said, more kind of a SaaS solution. So it'll be interesting. We found that it's been a bit of a challenge in the UK market actually explaining to people what a VA is. It's far more common, I'd say, in the US market, particularly the way we have structured ourselves. We provide task-based solutions as well as time-based solutions, and that task-based there's been a bit of an education process needed for the UK market to understand it, but in 12 months' time, I will see a very different company than what we see right now. So I'm very excited about this year, actually.
Good. Hope it all pans out as it was all planned. I can see that the assisted by as kind of an offshoot of that, you've got the virtual assistant directory.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
does, I guess, other than being a source where you can kind of tap into for the leads that come into assisted by, how else does that fit into the grand scheme of things?
Well, this is part of where we're going actually with the next couple of months. There's been a number of tools and services that have grown organically over the last 12 months without a great deal of planning or forethought. I'm a little bit of I'm definitely an ideas man and definitely run away with those ideas sometimes, and that's when my wife kind of reins me back a bit. So we're a really good partnership in that respect. What I've realized is that a number of these tools that are sitting out there at the moment aren't coherent, and this is really where we're going with these changes. The directory is a directory of virtual assistants. It was kind of born out of trying to help market and educate the UK market as to what is available out there. But actually, we've realised that there are bigger and better things that can be done with that. So we're so very excited about where this is going to go.
I'm trying to think of the best way to the words question. It's partly in front. Who would benefit from virtual assistants, or how would you convince a freelancer that they could better their own company or better their own position by having a virtual assistant do certain tasks for them?
Sure. There are the initial one is cost saving. The initial benefit of a virtual assistant over an employed PA or EA or secretary really is costs. We did look at some numbers, and this was based on real world costs. So obviously you've got pensions, you've got NI. There are various hidden costs associated with having an employee. A real world cost for a London-based PA was coming in at around, I have to double check the figures, but I think it's around £36 an hour. Now that was obviously including holiday pay, that was including all the costs associated with having a physical desk and training and so on. Our real world cost for one of our VAs is coming in at, I believe it was £24 an hour, so it's quite considerably lower than an employed individual. And then you've got all the benefits of not actually employing an individual. You are signing into a contract with this with the VA, but you are not employing them, so you haven't got some of the issues and difficulties that you can have when it comes to employing individuals. So it's very similar to hiring a freelancer within a web development situation. We believe VAs are beneficial to pretty much anyone. We try to offer our services out as we are able to complement existing PAs and complement existing staff that you have within your organisation. So we're not looking to try and take roles from people. We can actually work alongside. So if you've got a PA that's running from Monday to Friday 9 to 5, then your VA could run outside of those hours. So there are many options.
And I guess in terms of one of the freelancers, I can't quite remember how they word it, but in terms of you write yourself out of a job. So if you can document everything that you are doing on a daily or weekly basis, and then work out which bits actually could be done by anyone. It might need a little bit of training to start with, and it might take longer. But ultimately, if you're paying out £24 an hour, say, for somebody to do write up your accounts, for instance, well, that doesn't need your expertise as a web developer or a designer or a marketer or whatever your skill set is. And if you're earning equivalent of £50 an hour, say, well, of course, who wouldn't pay £24 an hour to have an hour be able to bill somebody else at £50 an hour? So I guess it's being able to break down a freelancer to break down their job to see, well, what could be farmed out, and that's going to be the best way to make them grow with the limited time they've got available.
Absolutely. We're there to try and optimize the time that that individuals have. Obviously, we want people to be able to focus on their key skills within their business. Now, if that key skill is web development, or if that key skill is being a plumber, we can then take on areas that we have key skills in, whether that's diary management, whether that's email management, whether that's accounts. There are a number of services that we can take on to relieve that pressure.
Did you? I mean, you said you started in kind of development by kind of doing websites for friends and family. What was your kind of background before that? Did you have kind of business or management experience before that?
Yes, yeah, I actually, well, if I go back 98, 99, I studied, it was programming languages at A-level, so it was C, a number of other languages, which was my first kind of, I always enjoyed technology, and I wanted to learn something to be able to set me up for the future. But I was also doing my A-levels were in photography, media studies, and media communication, so they were quite creative as well. From there, I went on, did a degree in business, strategic business management, and following the completion of that, I actually set up a chain of after-school and holiday clubs for primary school children. Which then led on to buying a pub. So it was quite a varied background. Whilst I was running the pub, I was a co-owner of the pub. We set up Outside In, which was a mobile pub, which was really good fun.
Can you just explain how a mobile pub works?
Yeah, sure. It's we used to cater for live events, so we'd go to festivals, weddings, all sorts. I mean, I could literally turn up in the middle of a field, in the middle of nowhere, and be completely self-sufficient and have a pub up and running within an hour and a half for you. So that was the full marquee, that was a full bar, and the lorry was the mobile cellar, and because of the licensing laws, it was the licensed premises. So we were actually legally allowed to sell anywhere, provided we have the permission of the landowner. And it was good fun, very good fun. I really enjoyed that time. And when we were there, we had that for, I think it was about 6 years. And from there, actually went into IT management. So very, very varied kind of past, if you like. But the IT, it was actually, whilst I was in my first IT manager's role, the company required a website, and that was partly how I came about finding WordPress.
Dave just asked, what's your favourite programming language? You mentioned C.
Ooh, I think for now I only do enough in PHP to be able to say that's my favourite. I don't do enough in anything else other than, well, I do a bit of obviously CSS and JavaScript.
Yeah. Okay. I can't remember exactly when we first met, when I first heard about you, but by and large, it was either going to be WordPress London Meetup, or probably WordCamp London, or maybe even WordCamp Europe. I know that the community aspect is a big thing that you do, and personally, it's very much appreciated. Anybody who does all the volunteering and organise and so on, thank you to yourself and everybody who's listening who does that role as well. How did you, you are the organiser for WordPress London. How did you kind of get into that role? What do you get out of that?
Sure. Great question. That was back in, when was that? 2000, it must have been November, I think it was November 2013. I went to WordCamp London 2013, my first one. And I'll never forget being very nervous, not knowing anybody, not really knowing why I was there, what I was doing there, what to expect, and had the most amazing couple of days. I was really blown away with the way the community accepted me as a total stranger, as I didn't know a single person there. And I had some various conversations. Actually, one of those was with Jo, and she really inspired me, actually. And I look back, and there were a number of people. Casper was another one, and I remember meeting. Oh, I've forgotten his name, but sorry, I've forgotten his name. But he mentioned to me about the WPLDM group. because that was already up and running. I went along, I think that was the December of 2013, and Keith Devon was obviously running WPLD at the time. He'd done a fantastic job setting it up. And very, very early on, within the first couple of meetups I attended, I approached Keith and said, look, I'm happy to get involved in whatever way I can, just to help out. And it really went from there. It was Keith, Nari, Graham, and myself were running the meetup, and just through for various reasons, it's ended up just myself at the moment. And I've loved it. There's been some real challenges. I say the payoff really for me has just been being able to give back to the community. I've really been able to enjoy connecting with companies for sponsorship. I've been able to enjoy searching out individuals for speakers, and it's been a real pleasure to be able to do that. And I'm very grateful to be in a position to be able to do what I do. And I would really strongly encourage anybody out there that is considering getting involved in a local community in any way to do it, because there's so much to be had from it. Even though initially it may not feel like it, it's very, very worthwhile.
And how might you convince somebody who's never been to a meetup to go to their first one, either locally or to make the effort and travel into London?
Mm-hmm. For me, as I say, it was about meeting people within the community that I had possibly met online, or just actually being able to interact with somebody. I think it's also easy to end up sitting in a room like this on my own and not interacting with anybody on a personal level for weeks. Sometimes, I mean, I've been in situations where you're so entrenched in what you're doing that actually you kind of forget that there's this real world out there that needs to be interacted with. So it's time to get the razor.
The house, and yeah,
that's right. So it's kind of time to get the razor out, make sure that the beard's gone, the hair's short, you're looking presentable, and get out and meet with people. And to be honest, the WordPress community has been so accepting and so easy to become a part of, that I would just strongly encourage anybody considering it, if they've never attended. WordCamps are just amazing events. I mean, the value you get from a WordCamp is astonishing, in terms of the ability to learn, in terms of the ability to network, and just what you gain from them is something very special, I think.
Do you see there being a different target audience, perhaps, from a monthly meetup or quarterly meetup compared to a WordCamp, or is it just it is a completely different event that has different benefits?
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm coming at it from a little bit of a biased perspective because of WPLDN. For me, WPLDN almost feels like a mini WordCamp each month, because it's trying to find speakers, sponsors, location, although a lot of that is now organised on a regular basis. I think I've attended some smaller meetup groups, and there's definitely a more intimate feel, which I enjoy. I think our December WPLDN was by far the smallest we've had recently.
I think it was about 16 there. It was very small.
It was actually one of my favourites, I've got to say, because it just felt so much more intimate, and it was about the individuals that were there rather than the much wider group. Although actually having the much wider group, I'm really grateful and really appreciate that, because it means that we can get out the kind of the teaching or the knowledge that we're getting from the speakers. We can get it out to a wide audience.
I think wandering around London with a couple of pizzas, or trying to offload a couple of pizzas, was part of the December meetup there.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that was. I really enjoyed that one.
How many WordCamps have you been to?
Not enough. What are we? 5 or 6, I think, off the top of my head. I'd like to get out to more of the European events, actually. Norway. There are a number of events that I would really like to be more involved in. but it's just time. That's something I really do struggle with, trying to find the time to do that.
And you, I certainly recognise or remember seeing you in a, I think, bright orange T-shirt for one of the WordCamps. There's probably different other brightly coloured T-shirts for other ones. Do you get benefit from volunteering for WordCamps rather than just turning up not socialised, but kind of networking and being able to go and see all the talks? Which would you prefer?
I prefer volunteering, without a doubt. For me, I feel that you're able to interact and connect with people so much easier because people are coming to you anyway as a volunteer. They're searching out the T-shirts, they wanted to know this, that, and the other. And it's a really amazing way, again, to be able to give back to the community, but also build up connections, build up contacts. And it's amazing how just a simple hello will actually spark a much wider conversation. And being that volunteer, being able to stand there and have people come to you really makes things in that respect a lot easier. I do miss some of the talks, but to be honest, every time I've volunteered, and I've said to the people that are organising the volunteer team, I've said, look, I'd particularly like to see that talk. It's never been a problem. They've always been able to kind of rejig things to be able to get so you can get and see the talk that you wanted to see.
Yeah, so there's no kind of drawbacks and saying, oh, well, I'm going to be stuck to the registration table or some other task, and I really want to go and see such and such. There, obviously, there's flexibility there for.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, my personal experience has only ever been positive from by volunteering at a WordCamp, and I will continue to do it.
Now, one of the organisers for, or one of the people on the committee for the WordCamp London this year is our usual co-host Jo. She asked me to say that they're currently doing a call for papers, i.e. if you want to submit a talk for WordCamp London. Now, the actual event is April the 8th to the 10th, I believe. So the talk submissions will need to be in fairly shortly. I'm not quite sure what the deadline on that is, but it will be, I guess, a few weeks. So get those in quick. And also, Jo asked to mention that if anybody wants to do a Genesis meetup at WordCamp London, then kind of keep an eye out for that, because I suspect we'll probably end up doing one regardless. So to keep an eye out for that. You mentioned kind of just before we started that you don't tend to use kind of Slack regularly. How do you interact with either the WP LDN community or the Genesis community, or perhaps the WordPress community at large online?
Yeah, I mean, Slack.
Do you have time for such bits and pieces online?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a challenge for me, actually. I really like Slack as a tool, and I've actually implemented it in companies that I've been within. I've encouraged the implementation of it in other places, but I found for myself, because I'm actually working with so many different people on a regular basis, that actually Skype has been my go-to tool. I do have Slack. I've set up Slack for various Slack channels. But I've just found that because we can often interact with people on quite a short time basis, so that they may only be using our service for a week or two, because of the particular because of the particular structure of our company. Going through and setting up the Slack channel for them and adding them to them just hasn't been practical for us. And that has meant that actually on a daily basis, I'm not in Slack, and often find that I'm missing things to do with the WordPress community, which almost saddens me a bit. I wish I did spend a bit more time in there, because I know I'm missing out on the ability to communicate with a wider community there. For WPLDN, it tends to be Twitter. There is a Facebook account as well, although there's very little done with that. So we've got the UK Meetup group within Slack, but I just don't, because I'm not on there on a daily basis. I'm not in there looking at it regularly enough.
Mm-hmm. How do you keep up to date with WordPress news?
I tend to check on a number of sites. WP Tavern is quite a common one that I keep an eye on. I tend to be more focused on the business side of things for keeping up to date with news. Matt Madera's podcast, the Matt Report, is one that I listen to regularly, and I found that very, very helpful from a business perspective in terms of WordPress. I think a lot of people can quite easily forget the business elements of being a WordPress developer, and get quite involved in just, I'm a developer, I produce code, and actually forget that invoices need to be raised, bills need to be sent out, and obviously ensure that they're paid. So I think that's a good one that I keep an eye on. And Twitter's really where I get a lot of the stuff that I share.
Yep. Just before we kind of move on, Dave, again, thanks for listening, Dave. Thanks for sending your questions. He asked, are there any tips for starting a meetup in your local area? Now, I know you're not actually quite London-based, and yet you're on the WPLDN. So are there any tips for running Meetup? Who can you kind of get in contact regarding kind of meetup.com fees, or who to speak to?
Yeah, well, you've got the option to go down the route to be supported by the WordPress Foundation. Off the top of my head, I forget the URL, but there is a page on the Make WordPress site that gives you some information about going down that more official route, where you can get the meetup fees paid for by the foundation, and also there's a lot of support provided by the foundation for you in terms of getting the meetup up and running. WPLDN was already up and running when I came on board, so it was of a scale, and because of the sponsorship that's already in place and a lot of the things that are already set up and running, that kind of official route was not really practical for WPLDN. I've got absolutely no issue with the concept behind that route of using that kind of the official meetup. It doesn't fit for the model that it's at the moment. In terms of actually advice for getting a meetup up and running, just start. It really is just get your meetup page, go to meetup.com, get a page up and running. It doesn't even have to be that, to be honest. A meetup is just getting some like-minded people together and chatting about the focus of the event. Obviously, if that's WordPress, then get onto Twitter, see if there are any people locally to you, get onto Facebook, and see if there's somebody who you can meet up somewhere. Often I find a pub isn't particularly great, although often it's probably the easiest solution for individuals that are just starting, because it's a free venue. Although there can be some issues around having alcohol at the event, and also noise, just actually having other people around you. But certainly, my advice would be just start. Just to actually reach out and see who's out there and is looking for something similar.
Absolutely. I think if you know somebody in your area, then just arrange a fortnightly or monthly kind of, could be in the pub to start with, just go for a drink, just talk WordPress, and then you can say, oh yeah, mention that, or mention that to somebody else and say, oh yeah, tell me when the next one's on, I'll come along, and it just kind of builds some kind of momentum and enough kind of critical mass of people from there, and then you can start looking at, I know the WordPress London meetup is in the university, and so trying to get a non-pub venue and sponsorship, and just kind of build from there as you kind of get more and more people interested. I know the WordPress London is about 80 people each month. I know you sign up for 110 or so, but
yes, yeah, we've got an average of around 80 individuals attending. I mean, I've got to say a huge thank you to City University. They've been an incredible venue to work with, and hitting a university, contacting university, if you have one in your local area, is an amazing place to start for a venue. The venue was one of the biggest challenges for WPLDN, trying to find a stable, somewhere that we could meet regularly and fit our purposes. Now, a university was perfect because you've got AV, you've got the environment is geared up for people to sit around and
have a presentation done.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So you've got the slides and everything all ready for you.
Do you want to quickly mention the other sponsors then?
If you're happy for me to, yes. Yeah. Again, a big thank you to both SiteGround and WP Engine for their continued support. It's been over a year for both of them now, and both have agreed for the whole of 2016 as well. So we're very stable going forward. I am looking for one more sponsor at the moment. So if there's anybody out there looking to get involved, please feel free to get in contact.
Excellent. Okay, let's do the quick fire round then. Some of these are, if you've listened to other shows, you'll know that some of the questions like, have you been to a WordCamp before? Have you been to a Meetup? Which is your so some of those we'll just kind of skip over. But
sure.
So question one, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A vet.
A vet.
I actually started studying animal husbandry.
Okay. Mac or PC?
Mac.
Which code editor do you use?
I use Coda.
How do you manage your code snippets?
GISTs for GitHub.
What do you use for local hosts?
VVV. Vagrant.
What do you use to deploy sites?
GitHub.
Deploy sites with GitHub?
Well, a combination of the staging through. I actually use a staging environment within our host.
Through Git, then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah. So.
What do you do you use kind of design wireframes mockups, and if so, which tool?
I do. I use Photoshop, which isn't an ideal solution. I saw a really nice workflow using Illustrator actually, and I just haven't spent enough time in Illustrator to be able to replicate that yet. And pen and paper actually for the wireframe stage.
Mm-hmm. What's your must-have plugins or your kind of go-to plugins?
Go-to, because of the types of sites I tend to build a business focus, we're looking to generate details of gravity forms. Tends to be my go-to, and obviously Yoast SEO.
Yeah, I think that's fairly common too for a lot of people, I would imagine, and there's a reason for that. You said you use the sample theme that you start off with. Do you have your own kind of version of the sample theme, or is it just stock sample theme, or do you have a different starter theme?
Yeah, I do. I have a number of my own sample themes, and that's where I started going a little bit wrong, because I was creating my own child themes, and actually every child theme was becoming an independent theme. So I tend to just go back to the child theme now, the sample theme now.
Do you have a public plugin?
I don't.
Would you consider writing one?
I would love to, but again, it's time, and I've got some concepts for some plugins, which hopefully 2016 we'll see. But again, it comes down to the time at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Have you done a public theme?
I haven't. No.
Would you consider writing one?
I would like to open source actually some of the themes that we've created for some of the sites that we've done for our internal projects. But again, time. It's just...
What do you think of the customizer?
If I'm honest, I have mixed feelings about it. I feel it's another place that settings can get lost in. I think there are a lot of options for settings within the current WP admin. I find users that aren't familiar with WordPress can get a little bit lost with those settings, and then to give them another area with another bunch of settings can cause some issues. Having said that, though, I have manipulated the customizer to reduce the number of settings that are required in the admin. So yeah, mixed feelings.
Okay. How do you see WordPress changing over the next 5 years?
Oh, good question. I see the way we interact with WordPress changing quite drastically. With the likes of Calypso recently launched, the customizer, WP API. I think the way the WP admin may not be what we come to know at the moment for very much longer.
Okay. What, if anything, would you like to see changed in the Genesis framework?
That question I struggle with, because it actually does what I need it to do. For me personally, I don't actually see that much I would change. Maybe the functions file There's this out of the box. There's quite a lot going on in there, but as I say, for me, it does what I need it to do.
What would you say are the benefits of Genesis to developers?
Time saving, absolute time saving. Obviously, time saving, it's cost saving, and some of the inherent SEO and security.
And what would you say the benefits are to clients?
Very similar. Very similar. The time saving that can be had there in terms of development time.
How much do you consider accessibility when you're doing your sites?
I consider it. The problem is I don't have the skills. I feel I don't have the skills to implement it as well as it should be implemented. I'll hold my hands up there. It's something that I know in 2016 I need to spend a bit more time teaching myself and focusing on. I've had some very good conversations with yourself and Graham Armfield around accessibility, and I know the importance of it. I just don't necessarily always understand how to ensure the sites are as accessible as they need to be. I've got the color combinations, the obvious ones always stand out to me, but it's more about the unseen issues that I can struggle with sometimes.
Mm-hmm. How much do you consider internationalization, localization, right to left scripts?
Again, very important, and going forward with some of the tools that we're creating, they become even more important. But again, it's something I'm not familiar enough with at the moment. It's something I need to familiarise myself with more.
Did you manage to see back in July now any of the Genesis Camp presentations?
I did, yes. God, that was all.
Which can you remember? It was a little while ago now. Can you remember which you particularly liked?
I can't. There were a number of them. I can't remember, to be honest. I mean, I watched a few back over and went back over a few, but they were very, very good.
Yep.
Is there a planned 2016 event? Do you know?
I don't. That's a very good question. I think we'll have to find out at some point. And so yeah, if some of the organisers, Peter and Trish and whoever else it was, I'm sure there's lots more, and I can't remember, I'm afraid. Yeah, let us know. Do you prefer www or non-www domains?
That depends on the domain. I found we've got assisted.by, people didn't really understand the .by. Is it assisted.by.com? And I found if I just put www in front of it, it just made sense to them. Whereas a number of other domains are naked. So I think it just depends on the top level domain.
Okay. What is the BY? Where's that?
I'm
going to say it's not Belarus.
No. I've forgotten off the top of my head. I don't know.
Somebody tweet us, let us know what it is. Yes. Dave, if you're still listening, find out for us. What was the first domain you purchased, and how many domains do you own now?
Ooh, first domain would be some obscure domain. I actually can't remember what the first one was. I've got probably in the region of about 60 odd domains at the moment.
60, wow.
Yes, yeah. Not all of them working as hard as they should be.
Yeah, BY does appear to be Belarus.
Belarus.
Yeah, I can't think of any others that that fits. And which was the first domain that you purchased?
I can't remember what the first domain was. Sorry.
That's okay. Which is your preferred tool or plugin for post types and custom field implementations?
Advanced custom fields. Will tend to be the one I'll turn to first.
Excellent. Yeah, David just said, yeah, Gary's right. Belarus.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's the hacker guy. Yeah, and Craig Simpson, thank you for listening, Craig. He also said that, yeah, it was Belarus as well. Cool. Okay, thank you very much. Who would you most like to see on the podcast next?
I think there is definitely a Gary Jones shaped hole missing in the lineup there.
We'll see. We'll see. Yes, it is planned.
Yeah, excellent. And Elaine Jones, actually. It's actually been a struggle to find the UK Genesis developers. We've actually Google UK Genesis developers. There's not a huge amount returned, so it's
And that's part of the reason why we kind of started this UK Genesis movement in the first place, such that we could perhaps either have a directory of them or just do podcasts and kind of give some exposure that way. We did have Elaine booked in. Unfortunately, she had to cancel, so we'll see if we can reschedule her for later on in the year. Okay, where can we find you online?
Pretty much anywhere that's /Dan Maby. At Dan Maby on Twitter, danmaby.com, Facebook /Dan Maby. All pretty good places to catch me.
It's a fairly unique. It's not unique. Well, it's an unusual name. It's a unique
name,
isn't
yes.
it? It's, not too many of you around.
Quite lucky with the domains.
That's it. Are you really a Daniel rather than a Dan?
I used to be Daniel. I was always Daniel as a child, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm a Dan.
Sounds good. I like it.
Never a Danny.
Never a Danny. Not Danny Maby. No. Okay, our next guest in 2 weeks' time is Liz James. We had, in fact, no, it's not. It's Liz Jameson. I apologise for that. We had her husband, Russell Jameson, on back in June. They were the husband and wife team. And so we've got the wife on this time in 2 weeks' time. So that is on the 27th of January. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dan.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
And thank you to our listeners as well. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay. Cheers. Bye.